Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Leather Chronicles. My guest this evening is Judy Tallwing McCarthy, Apache, Tewa, African American and Irish activist, leather dyke, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. Before we get started, I do want to mention that Vi's book, To Love, to Obey, to Serve, is available in print once again. You can find that at sucktherainbow.com. Need to remind everybody that the second Wednesday of the month is Librarian Speaks. The third Wednesday of the month is Leather Pride Night, and fourth Wednesday of the month is Leather Chronicles, like you are with us tonight. Judy, ma'am, it is such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for asking.
Normally I start with the benefit of hindsight, looking back. When was your first kinky moment? But with you, I want to go a little further back than that, because where you were born and what your childhood was like is of great interest to me. So sharing what you're willing to share, tell me about young Judy.
Well, when I was born, my family lived in a desert encampment. It was a bunch of tents, some of them army tents that my grandfather had gotten, and they were surplus from the war. I was born in 1945, and right at the end of the war, pretty much, June of 45. And my mother had been in California. She was working kind of like a Rosie the Riveter in San Diego when she met my father. And then, of course, then I came not too long after that. Never met him, still don't know him, but I know where he came from. Anyhow, so yeah, my whole family lived out there, aunts, uncles, grandma. And the first things I remember were our dogs. And I remember running all over the desert. I never worried out there because we were out at the base of the Bradshaw Mountains in Arizona, and we lived in desert at the base of those mountains. And we used to have to haul the water. My grandfather would I'd like to say this just because it's fun. He had a Woody. And then in those days, a Woody was a different thing than it means now. It was an old panel truck with wooden sides. Most of the body was wood. And he used to take the big drums and go into the city. Well, for us, it was a city. He went into Glendale, Arizona, or Peoria, Arizona, and got water, because then it was just a little thing in the road. And this, right. I don't know what's going on with this.
Everything on our end is fine. You're here with us.
Oh, you can see, because
yeah.
This thing keeps popping up in the front of the screen.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't want that. Oh, you are, but go away. And I actually watched Jay the last time, so I could fix this one myself.
Oh, you know.
Anyhow,
I worked myself out of the job.
Yeah, I saw you get rid of it earlier. I paid attention, That's my Jaybird. But so I kind of grew up out there, and then my mother remarried. She married my stepfather, and we traveled and lived in migrant camps. We were migrant workers for a number of years, and I spent a lot of the time that I remember well was up in Washington State, because we traveled the crops, And
right.
the thing about the migrant camps, because basically they're just mostly cabins, and if they're even that much. And but we lived on the orchards, by the orchards, so they were usually decent little cabins. Mm-hmm. And I didn't go to school that much because I helped, I could wrap the apples to put them in the boxes and stuff. But somewhere in there, my father learned how to do to care for cattle, to feed cattle, and I used to think I was really good because I could help guide the wagon once in a while that he pushed the hay off to the cattle on. So I got to hold the horse reins. That was pretty good. That was fun. Mostly, I was happy on the desert. I still remember those times, and I think those are what gave me, how do I say, not courage, but determination
Yeah, well, you'd have to be
to
to
get
live in,
through
yeah,
other
living in the
things
desert.
as
Yeah,
I
if
got
you can
older.
survive in the desert, yeah.
I had my best friends. They always were with me. I have 14 dogs, but you had to have a lot of dogs out there. They were well fed, trust me, because we hunted for our food and they got part of that too. I used to carry my best friends were a horned toad and a red racer snake. And I carried the horned toad in my shirt pocket. And my grandmother always gave me a pocket on whatever lures I was wearing, whether they were, you know, I didn't wear skirts, but they were like little short pants. And I used to carry my snake there. I got thrown off the school bus once when I was older for carrying a snake on the bus and scaring the girls. That might have been my first kink. I don't know.
Nice segue, man. Nice segue. Yeah.
Well, and for a while we moved into the projects in Glendale, and they were kind of at the edge. It was a small town, so we were kind of at the edge of that small town. And across the road from the projects was a dump ground. Now, back then, there were just open bits of land, and way across that land was the squirt factory. We used to go over there and steal grapefruit, but I won't talk about that. Anyhow,
You liberated grapefruit.
okay, I like liberating. Yes, I like that. We're freeing something. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good term. But it people would dump things there, and sometimes they dumped old cars. And I think one of my next, I guess you could call it kink, experiences. I didn't recognize it for what it was, trust me, but because I had never heard that word. But I used to like to play cowboys and Indians. And that's what, don't, it's not, we had to play cowboys and Indians. And the way I played, and I was the oldest one of us, and I was about that time, maybe 8 or 9. But the way we played, I was also the tallest always, so I got to lead the gang. And I was always an Indian, of course. I had to be an Indian. I didn't want to be no cowboy. So I was always an Indian. And the Indians always won. That was the rule. We always won. Sometimes I would be an Indian of one, but we still won. But I like to tie people up back then.
Mhm.
I didn't know all the fancy ropes and knots and stuff, but I could. And usually it was with bits and pieces of things that we found in the dump. It could even be rags or rope or whatever. But I remember my first time I got in real trouble from my mom and some of the other mothers in the projects was because we were playing cowboys and Indians, and I caught this soldier boy and I tied him up to the car post. It was one of those old metal bodied, I don't even remember what kind it was. It was like an old battered green car.
Mhm.
I tied him up to the post of the car and left him. And so I got in a lot of trouble for that one. I got in trouble for some things, yeah. I also knew, you know, I've been drawing and painting all my life. And my family were the Indians on the roadside with a blanket, you know. Grandma would make things, grandpa would make things, aunts and uncles. Well, not too many of them, but uncles were always out hunting and doing their thing. But things got left. We would put things out on the roadside between, we were on old Route 66 between Phoenix and Wickenburg, actually closer to Wickenburg. And we would sell things there. And I was really proud because my very first painting sale in my life was I got my mom and grandma's paints, and I got a rock and I painted a little bee on a flower. I painted on that rock and it sold for $0.25 on the blanket. Now in 1940 something, that was not bad. That
Yeah,
close.
considering they were paying, let's see, I remember from like Band of Brothers, the paratroops were making $50 a month, and then $50 extra to be a paratrooper. So the regular soldiers were getting $50 a month. So
Yeah.
yeah, a quarter was quite a bit.
Yeah, and I was only about 3.5 when that happened. So that was a long time ago, but I just remember being proud. That was something I still remember. Um, so, gosh, there's so much stuff. Oh, at my age, trying to remember anything is good work.
Everything you're remembering is amazing to listen to. And this is why I asked this question. I knew you had a very interesting childhood.
But the first, like, when I knew kinky, I recognized it and heard the word and knew that the people around me knew what they were doing
Hmm.
was I was sent to a Catholic residential school, a girls' school, and I
Ouch.
spent quite a few years in that girls' school. I remember I was not quite 12, and I was locked in here's the thing, I was locked in a solitary confinement cell at the top of the convent. And the only person I saw for almost 9 months was the woman who brought me my food, the nun who brought my food. And she didn't like me at all. And they did it to me because I was a danger to the other women of the school, because I was a lesbian. I didn't
Oh.
even know what a lesbian was.
Well, I was going to ask what you
I've never
did,
heard the
but
word.
okay.
We don't have that word.
Right.
It's not, but two-spirit is also a new word to me. We have many genders that are recognized depending upon the person and who they are. And so I didn't hear the word two-spirit till I had my own medicine woman and was living up in Seattle and was quite a bit older.
Hmm.
But anyhow, I got out of that school and I hated, they put me in a foster home. I
Is there
really
a
hated
great
that.
breakout story from this school?
Well, yes, there was actually. I was supposed to be, they were building some new buildings. Um, uh, like they were building on campus housing. They were houses so that if you were a really good kid and didn't get into any trouble and minded all the P's and Q's, you could live in there with the house mother. You wouldn't be locked in the convent anymore. And I never got to live there, but they did ask me to paint. So I did painting of some closets and stuff like that. And uh, actually, I was real skinny and tall. So I was doing all the enamel work in the closets in those new houses. And managed to get my hands on a set of keys. And me and another girl named Margie left the school, and I was going to go find my grandpa because I knew my grandfather would take care of me. I was headed for the desert. I was getting out of Dodge, and that was an experience in itself. Um, yeah, but we ended up getting caught and sent back to the school, and then they were going to put me in another foster home, and that didn't work because I ran away again. Only this time, I cut my hair and lived as a boy. So, and my best friend Larry was, at that time I was maybe 13. I was 13, right at 13, 1959. How old was I then?
45, 14, 13 or
Mhm.
14. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how old I was. And my best friend Larry and we became friends. Larry was gay. He was beautiful. I mean, everybody who saw this young man, he was just beautiful, but he was a little slow and I wasn't. So I kind of like took care of us and made sure things were okay for us. And he kept us kind of protected because he wasn't going to let anybody hurt us. So I'm not sure who protected who in those years. That actually, it was almost 2 years that we did this.
It sounds like a
There
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, there was a while we were living behind the Westward Ho Hotel garbage dumpster in Phoenix because Back then it was the fancy hotel, and they had the best food.
They
Their
had
food
all the
was
best
so
food.
good. Yeah. But you know, when their staff at the restaurant found out that we two kids were living back there, because Larry was like 22 or 23. I like to say 25, but I don't think he was quite 25. But he was like 14, 15 going on 25. I mean, 25 going on 14 or 15.
Right.
But he was beautiful, and he was kind, and he was actually pretty quick at taking care of himself.
Yeah.
And so we lived back there, and the staff would leave food for us that didn't get put in the dumpster. They would make sure they put it out for us so we could eat. We didn't do that very long. Then I got the bright idea that we were going to go to San Francisco. Me and Larry, we were going to San Francisco. And so we hitchhiked to San Francisco. And again, I was a boy. At that, I'm getting shorter now, but back then I was nearly 6 feet. I was like 5'11", and really skinny, so there wasn't anything to see. So we hitchhiked, and there was something about, we just drew some gay men here and there. I think it had a lot to do with Larry. But we got a ride from LA. I'll never forget that ride. This young gay man had just bought a Triumph, a new car, not a motorcycle car, and it seated 2 people. And there was an open spot in the back where you could kind of scooch in.
That's the
So I
TR.
was in the back, scooched in. Yeah.
You were back in the convertible, in the little boot?
Yeah, in a convertible. And I was in the back, and he wanted to break in his brand new car. So he drove us all the way to San Francisco and turned us loose. And
this is 59?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And by that time, of course, I knew what a lesbian was, and I knew I was one. So that wasn't a question anymore. But so we went looking for a bar, as old as I was. And I was always a little bit of a butt anyhow. I wasn't afraid of much. And so
again, living in the desert with snakes and frogs.
And there was a lot less danger in the desert because I knew it and my family knew it.
Right.
I mean, they put up a huge Apache fence around the encampment, so I couldn't get out, and I still got out. And my grandmother never could figure out how I got out of that fencing. That used to drive her crazy, that I could always get out. I don't remember how I did it either, but I did it.
So you're in San Francisco and you're looking for a bar?
Yeah, we're looking for a bar. So we went to Peg's Place. Now that's an old bar name, and anybody in San Francisco is going to remember that name. It was a women's bar because, of course, I wanted to go find women. Larry didn't care. He was going along with me, whatever we were doing there. So we went in, and they didn't card us or anything. But back then, they were pretty good at carding because they were still doing raids on the bars. It was still, San Francisco was a little looser than other places. But I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Anyhow, so we went in this bar, and we sat in the booth, and we're going to order something. And I didn't drink alcohol, so I wasn't going to order alcohol anyhow, but I smoked my cigarettes like crazy. And we sat down in the booth, and there was another booth with a bunch of women next to us. And I put the cigarette in my mouth, but I did it like I'm looking for a pen or something. Nah, I did it like punks. Put it in my mouth like that, pull out my cigarette, and I'm gonna light it, and like that. So the waitress says, "I need to see your ID." So I got myself busted by being dumb in that way. And she said, "I'm gonna go to the bar. When I come back, you better have it ready for me." So I'm like, well, we're going to have to leave now, Larry. We got to go. And the woman in the booth next to us said, "Here, use my ID." she handed me her ID. I looked at that ID. I said, the only thing we got going for us is we both got dark hair. That was it. She was so much older. And so I was chickened. I couldn't do it. So I gave it back to her. I said, that's okay. She said, listen, kid, you got a place to sleep tonight? And I said, no, we don't. She said, wait outside for me. She said, I'll be out after a while. You wait outside for me. I'll take you home with me. And so she took us home. And back in those days, butches didn't do butches. If you were a butch, you didn't make a play for another butch. Femmes could do femmes, but butches didn't do butches. And I remember waking up, a friend of hers came in and it kind of woke me up because I was sleeping in the bed with her. And I heard her say her friend, too bad this one's a butch. She's a cutie. Too bad she's a butch. And I thought, damn, hey, we would have had a place to stay. But that didn't work. So anyhow, I decided it was time to go home. And we left and we hitchhiked back. And I remember getting into San Diego. And one of our rides was a guy who, I'll never forget this. There, you know, isn't it funny the things that you remember that really hit you about life? I remember being as hungry as I've ever been in my life then, and it stayed with me all my life. I cannot stand for anybody to go hungry. I'm going to feed you if I can. But we got into this car. We hadn't had food in a couple of days. And we got into this, it was a pickup truck, and the guy had, we got in, and next to him, he had a big bucket of Colonel Sanders fried chicken. He'd gone to do a chicken run for his family, and he picked up these two kids to give us a ride. And I remember thinking, I've never thought this about it again in my life. I was thinking about really mugging this guy to get that food. But we didn't.
I have a question. How long? So were you in San Francisco very long, or just a very brief
No,
time?
just about a week.
Okay.
I got to see Janis Joplin, but
Sweet.
she was we were in that part of San Francisco. God, I can't remember. I lived there and I can't remember.
Haight-Ashbury, Folsom.
Yeah, the Haight.
Okay.
And it was in a old apartment building, and she was in one of the rooms on the floor. And I didn't know who she was, but the woman we were staying with said, "Know who that is?" I didn't know anything, but so we weren't there very long. And I was like, "Okay, I'm done. We're going home." So we headed home, and when we got back to Phoenix.
But you didn't mug the guy for KFC.
No, I didn't even ask him for it. I didn't.
Okay.
No.
Not even
How we
steal a little
got
piece.
food was the next. We slept behind a gas station, you know, because they had lights and there were people coming and going. So we slept behind a gas station. We always picked a place that had people and things around.
Right.
So we slept behind the gas station. And then when we came out, I decided, okay, we're starving. We got to get some food. So I went to a little hole in the wall restaurant. And I said, listen, mister, we're really hungry. We haven't had any food. And my friend and I really, really need food. We'll do anything. We'll wash dishes. We'll wash your windows. So that's what he did. He had us wash his windows. And he took us in and he fed us a good meal. And then he gave us little bags to take away with us. And so we hitchhiked back to Phoenix. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to go back to the Westward Ho because we don't have any place. And we had some friends who were also street kids, all young men that lived in downtown. They always hung out in the downtown area at night. And a lot of them they prostituted because that's how they had to survive. And but they liked me. They thought I was crazy, but they liked me. And they just thought Larry was sweet and cute, but he was like competition for them in a way. But I wasn't, because they knew I was a dyke. But they wanted to fool a friend of theirs. He was a leather man, and they told me about who he was and what he did. And I thought, that's cool, you know. But they wanted to fool him because he loved young boys. That's why they all knew him. He liked young boys. They didn't, not little kids, but he liked very young men. And And since I was passing as a boy and I fooled all of them for quite a while, they decided they were going to fool him. So they set it up for us to meet. We're meeting at Indian School and Central because there was a restaurant there on the corner. And so they set it up for him. They had this new boy in town. He was really going to love him. They wanted him to meet him. So he was going to come to meet this new boy in town. And we were all talking, and I had my back to him, and we were talking away. And as he came up, he looked at me and he said, "That's not a boy, that's a girl." And they're like, "How did you know that?" He said, "Hands and hips." And I'll never forget that, hands and hips. But he fell for my friend Larry and really cared about Larry. So he took us in and we lived with him. I slept on the couch. Of course, Larry was his partner, became his partner. And they had parties because leather in Phoenix, Arizona isn't something that's worn a whole lot because
What time frame are we talking now? What year are we talking?
we're talking still, it was still around 59.
Okay.
Still around 1959. Might have been the beginning of 60, right in there, but because I know it was a little cooler than summer, but it wasn't cold. And he took us in to stay at his, and he had a really nice apartment. It was like two apartments. It was a building, and there was split in half. There was an apartment on each side, and he used to have friends in, and they had parties. So I got to see a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
So
we're talking a Leatherman in 59. Yeah, that's
so there was a lot of things
there.
that were happening at the time. They also had a bar in town, and I thought I'd never forget the name of it, but my memory is so bad now. It was only open for Leathermen one night a week. And so the guys would dress in leather and they would meet at this bar on that night of the week. And I was allowed to come, but there was a rule that if the light went on, and that was one with a light on it, and to get behind the bar, you had to push the gate and go under it, you know? So you could get between the bar, because otherwise it was a solid bar all the way across. It wasn't that great a place, I mean, big a place, but that was how the bar was set up. And the rule was, if that light went on, my job was to get my ass under that gate, out the back door, and hide in the oleanders till somebody came and got me, or I made my way home. So that was my first experience in the leather community. And I'm fond of saying I polished more size 13 high heels and boots than most people I know, because that was one of the things I did for him and for our little family there, was I kept the boots cleaned and polished, and they had to be, you know, when you're riding bikes, you better look good, especially if you're a leather guy. And bikes were the rage. He had a Pontiac convertible, though. I remember that Pontiac convertible. I loved that thing. It was beautiful. I always wanted one, never got it. But so that was kind of that. But I was supposed to go to school. Well, there's no way in hell I was going to go to school. That was the problem for me all the way along, was I wasn't going to go to school. And so then they were going to send me back to the school, and I ran off from there. I spent a lot of time running away. And I ended up with a friend that from my 8th grade, when I went to 8th grade. I was in that foster home for a very short time, and 8th grade, very short time. But I stayed with her, and she had a good friend that lived down the street. And that's when I met my now ex-husband. And I knew they were gonna catch me and send me back, because my friend Barbara's grandmother didn't want me there at the house. She thought it was gonna get everybody in trouble having this young kid in her home. So David asked me to marry him, and I said yes. So I got married. And then I was married for almost 18 years. And I had 6 kids, and I now have 21 grandchildren.
Wow.
And 22 great-grandchildren. I actually have a picture of my newest great-grandchild right here on my screen. I can see him right now. Cute. He's only about 3 weeks old, I think now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so it's funny. I stayed married that time. So I said I've had a couple of coming outs. I
Sounds
came
like
out, and then I went in, and then I came out, and then I came out.
it. Out and back in. Out.
Yeah, out in.
And then all the way out.
Yeah. And so, when I got into the women's community, I was with a woman for a while, and I went to the Women's Music Festival, Michigan Women's Music Festival. And then when I knew I was not gonna not be a kinky dyke ever again, I met all of the women from Syracuse, New York, and I met my Sashi, who ended up being my lover many years later, because we had this rule: neither one of us dated if we were in a relationship. But I remember just stalking her. But my first real play party that I got to play in was at the Michigan Women's Music Festival. Leather women were not allowed, and yet there was a tent. The disabled women's tent allowed a bunch of us leather women to come in and use the tent to play. So we had a play party in the middle of the night, and I remember sneaking into that tent. We went under the canvas to get inside the tent. And I remember Sashi had her partner at the time, BK, tied to a post in that tent and just wailing on her. And I'm thinking, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. But I ended up getting a few screams of my own on a couple of people and having a great time. And then I remember the next day at Michigan, there was rumors all over the festival grounds about someone having been being murdered in the woods the night before. And it was my friend BJ beating her girlfriend Tink, and Tink was very vocal. And so she was screaming and yelling.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
in the
Okay,
woods.
not actually murder.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, but that's when I met Sash, and I stalked her. I stalked her the whole time we were in Michigan. I stalked her. She was a pharmacist. She worked in the womb, and I thought she was great, and I just followed her around. She didn't know I was following her around. Robin Tyler tried to flirt with me, and I ignored her completely. I didn't care. I mean, she was okay, but Sashi was hot. Little Jewish dyke from Brooklyn, New York. And I followed her around and followed her around, and like I said, she never knew I was there until the last day. And we all meet on the hill. Everybody's on for the last concert of the day, and we're all on those hills, because this was on the old Michigan land, and it had a big hill, and the stage was down below. And I said, okay, I gotta go. And I had my big work van. I had a huge ass van, because that was when I was building houses and doing a graphics company. That was my graphics business. So I used that big monster. And so she said, I'll walk you back to your car. And I said, okay, good. That's great. So we get back to the van, and I'm ready to get in. And I said, wait a minute. I said, I have to tell you something. I think you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And she screamed right back at me, why the hell didn't you tell me sooner? Because I was always so shy. And most people wouldn't realize I'm shy, but my twin knows it. Don't you, sweetie? Yeah, she used it against me. Many times. You did. I'm looking at her right now. You did. But anyhow, so I moved to, we decided as I was leaving, she said, can I kiss you? I said, of course you can. Yeah, here, we'll do that right now. And we decided that if we were ever in the same place at the same time and we were single, we were going to go out and see what happened. And that happened a couple of years later. And I ended up moving to Portland.
So it's the last day of the concert, of the event.
Yeah.
She has to go back to New York, and you're going back where?
Back to Phoenix. I was in
Okay.
Phoenix. Yeah. With my company, I was running in Phoenix.
Can't get much further apart on
Nope.
on the
Well,
map
and
than
then,
that.
well, she was actually in Syracuse, New York at the time. She was Syracuse, but she and a bunch of the Syracuse Dykes, because Sashi wanted to move and everybody decided they wanted to move. And she, you know, she had left Brooklyn to Syracuse and didn't like that, so she wanted to leave. So they decided she needed an ocean and she needed some place that would accept her pharmacy license. So she moved to Oregon, to Portland. And my ball coach, because I played when I played ball, I played softball as much as I could, and for a little while I played semi-pro ball.
Wow.
But my coach moved, and she was the reason I met Sashi to begin with. She was originally from Syracuse, so I was on my way up to the Macaw Nation. I had a friend up there who was a medicine woman, and I was headed up there to spend time with her. And another friend had given me a lithography and etching press that I was going to pick up while I was up there. And it was worth the trip. So I drove up there and I realized Sashi was in Portland on my way back. So I called my friend BJ and I said, Beach, I'm going to be in town. And she said, cool, I'm going to tell Sashi you're going to be in town. I said, okay, that's good. Yeah. And I was late. We broke down. I had to do a midnight auto supply for that old V-dub to get that and a rubber band and a bobby pin got us back on the road. You could keep those things running for nothing.
Yep.
But I ended up moving to Portland, and then all hell broke loose in my life.
So just when things look up, things go bad? Is that?
Oh, it wasn't bad.
Not bad. Just
nothing bad. It
okay,
was
good.
helpful, but it was insane. For me, I ran my company, I did my job, I had my girlfriend, I did my stuff, I played ball, I took my kids to the movies, I did that kind of, that's all I did. I get to Portland, the first thing I'm on a board of directors for the Defenders of Misra, which is a women's leather Levi group, but Sashi was the ringleader and considered the mother of Portland leather, literally, because she also helped Andy Mangles found the men's leather organization in Portland. He used to come over when she was sick and hang out with her, and everybody came and hung out in our bed to talk to Sash. She had cancer, and we would be home when she would have her chemos, and it would just knock her down. And so everybody came and visited in the house, and they were all there, and I went to work and came home, and who knew who was going to be at the house at the time. But then I was involved in a women's leather organization. I also was on the board of the Lesbian Aging Project. That was a group to find the old Dykes home, or found the old Dykes home. So, you know, Sashi, like I said, her little Brooklyn Jewish Dyke personality was like on a roll all the time. So, so we played a lot. We had to decide which one of us was going to be the top, because I was raised old school with butches. Butches didn't do butches. Sashi was a butch. I was a butch. I still love butches. Always have. I like femmes too, but you know, I won't mess with that one right now. But anyhow, we decided, or she decided, I actually was pretty mellow about stuff. And she decided that one of us had to be the bottom because you couldn't have two tops together. Two butch tops, not going to work, especially not in Portland where they, it was more traditional leather, femme butch kind of thing. Not quite as bad as it was in the 60s and 70s and
I was
80s.
going to ask this. Perfect. Let me ask you, what year are we in now? You've
We're
jumped a
in
little.
1980, 82 or 83.
Okay.
Yeah, my mother died in 83. It was a year after my mom died.
Okay.
And so it was 1983. And so we decided one of us is going to have to be the bottom. It's not going to work. I said, but I don't want to be a bottom. She said, I don't want to be a bottom either. Well, one of us is going to have to try it. So we're going to try to figure out which one of us is going to do this. Okay. How are we going to do this? Well, you be the bottom one night when we go out with everybody, and then I'll be the bottom the next night. And I'm like, okay, we can do this. We can do this. So at the time, we had a collar and chain thing, to go out, and the top would hold a chain. And if you didn't have your chain on you, it was in their left pocket, hooked onto their belt. That's how we did it. And so I got the short straw. I had to be the bottom the first night we were going out. And the old 927 was our bar. That was our dive bar. That was our bar. Everybody showed up. We showed up there, and the whole leather bunch of us would gather and have fun and dance and drink and then do whatever we do. And so I get the collar on. She's not holding it. I'm just got it on and it's tucked in my pocket. Okay. And the chain there. And we get to the bar. And so as we're getting ready to walk in the bar, she hooks the chain on the collar and puts the leash in her hand. And we walk into the bar, and she leads me over to the table, and we sit down and we order our drinks. And then she says, you want to dance? And I said, yeah. Oh, and while we were having our drink, she undoes the leash. And so we get a drink, and she asked me to dance, and I'm like, sure, because we danced all the time, and I always loved dancing. So she hooked the leash, and she stands me up, and she leads me on the leash to the dance floor. And I'm going along, being my tall self and her 5'3 3/4 self. And we danced. She got to the dance floor, she took the leash off. We danced. Then she put the leash back on and led me back to the table when we were done. And there was this thing, you did not embarrass your top. You did not. That was like bad news. Bad. You don't do it. So I just leaned over to her and I whispered in her ear, don't you ever fucking do that to me again. And that was it. We decided it wasn't going to work for me. So it was her turn to try it the next time we went out. She never got out the front door. She couldn't do it.
I was wondering which one of you was going to be me in this situation. Nope.
She couldn't do it. She couldn't even, no, she couldn't. She was like, we're not going. No, I'm not doing, no, we're not going. I'm not, in that thick Brooklyn accent. Audrey knows that accent. Audrey Joseph is my inherited sister from Sashi, because they were friends way back in Brooklyn, a long time. And anyhow, but that thick accent, yeah, nope, it wasn't going to work. So then we decided, okay, we're both tops. This is the way it is. They're going to have to get used to it. We'll bring people in. So we can beat up on people and we can do all kinds of fun things to them and no problem. So that's what we did from that point forward. We brought people in. But it's life is, wow. It's like Portland is has one of the oldest. I know the women of Wolf have a really long-standing women's leather organization, one of the longest in the country. Continuously operative. This one, theirs though, has continuously kept the same name. Oregon, we started the leather organization. It started in 1980, and it was called Chrysalis then, and then that one kind of died, and then they began the Defenders of Mithra, which was more leather Levi, and then we did Portland Power and Trust, which was established in 82. So it's a long-standing leather organization, and PP&T and Chrysalis were both leather kink organizations. And
So there was a lot of leather going on in Portland in the early 80s. Is what
oh,
I'm hearing.
you know there was. I know that they called us we were having a meeting in Portland around because we all have meetings at our house. Some of it was because Sashi and I smoked, and if you wanted fresh air, you went on the porch. That was how we did it. But most of the meetings were held at our house anyhow, just because it was a bigger house and it just was the way it was. And Sashi kind of ran most of them. And so we were having a big meeting. We got a call. We had planned a play party because we had dungeons. Different ones of us had dungeons in our basements. We had play spaces in our basements. Robin and Molly always had the best one, and usually we ended up at their house. But we also had one in our basement, and sometimes though, when it was a bigger group, like we would rent a warehouse to have a party. But that was more after we had a men's organization, and when in LA was getting rolling and that kind of stuff, and then the Seattle Boxing Guild started, or Dungeon Guild started at the old boxing club. So stuff like that was going on. But we, God, I just lost my train. Where was I?
That's fine. That's a lot. I mean, there was a lot going on then.
Yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, we were having a meeting at our house, a big meeting at our house, and we got a phone call one night. And this was in 80. This was about 1985 or 86. At the end of 85 or right in, I think 86. And it was Kathy Gage from San Francisco. And they wanted to know if we would support, because we were doing a lot of hell raising of getting attention for women. My biggest, I've been fighting for women's rights since I mean, I was a delegate to the conference, International Women's Conference in Houston. While I was married, the first few years of that marriage were serious punishment. I mean, he wasn't a very nice man, but it was really pretty hard. And I really wanted an education. I never had one. I never even finished the 8th grade. And we were on welfare, and I had all those kids, and life was going down the tube, and I'm going way back again, because and I guess it's because I like to forget those times sometimes, but I can't really
understand that.
Yeah, I would have to go to the welfare department, and I always felt like, I mean, because as a native, we got commodities, and we didn't have to go get them. I wasn't one of the ones that had to go get them. My grandma had a friend that would bring them to us, but native people, we got commodities, and really poor people got commodities. So we still got commodities when I was married to David, because he'd gotten disabled into an accident. But welfare always made you feel like you were less. You weren't a real human being. You didn't count for anything. The caseworkers were always so condescending, and it really was that way. So it's really hard to have to go through that. And every time the political climate would change, there would be new laws made for welfare reform, and they never asked anybody on welfare anything about those,
Of course.
what should be. No, they don't give a shit what you think. So, and then I'd have to go in and they would go through and tell me what I could do and what I couldn't do and what I could have and what I couldn't have. And I remember this one time they asked me, what did I want? What did I want in my life? Because I wasn't, I was still a kid. I mean, I married him when I was 15. So I was still a kid, and they wanted to know what I wanted to do with my life. And I said, I want to be an advertising artist. Because they made money doing art. And I always saw those little comic book ads, I didn't have any. I read every book I could get my hands on. I always have been an avid reader. Ever since the farm woman gave my mom some books for me that she used to cook for ranch hands. She'd take her horses, go to the cook for them, and then come home, and the ranch wife gave her books for me. So I learned to read pretty early, and I always read everything. But I knew I wanted to be something. And they said, well, no, you can't do that. So they said, here's what you can do. You can be a clerk typist. You can work on an assembly line, factory assembly line. You can be a nursing assistant. You can be a dental assistant. There were always 5, and I always forget one, but I always forget a different one every time.
Right. You can never remember all 5.
Yeah,
Right.
but they told me those were my options. That's all they could do, because I had to be making money within a year of going to school. And the advertising program was a 2-year program, so they couldn't let me do that. I didn't even know there was an advertising program. I didn't know anything about it. I remember we would drive by Phoenix College, and I would think those people were the luckiest people in the world. And they had to be rich because they were in school. So anyhow, that was the blackest day of my life, the darkest I ever had life. And I've told this story, and every time I choke because I just remember it so clearly.
You can tell. Yeah.
I used to catch my bus to go home at First Street in Washington in Phoenix. And and the welfare office that I had to go to was down by the Capitol building, which was, down first at the end of First Street around, First Street. But so I'd have to come back and catch my bus at First and Washington to go home. And I was on that corner at First and Washington. And I was in such a horrible state. Now I know there was a big building behind me with huge glass windows. It used to be a Corks department store. And I knew the Corks department store was there, but I hardly ever went downtown. And so I was thinking to myself, what if I just stepped off this curb right now? Because there was a bus coming. My bus was on its way. And I thought, if I just stepped off this curb right now, right this minute, it would all be done. The darkness, everything would all be gone. I wouldn't have to do that. I'd go join my ancestors and be done. And something, and I know it was an ancestor kicking me in the ass, made me turn around. And just before I did that, I was going to do that. And just before I did it, I turned around like that. And I opened my eyes, and there was this huge window behind me. And it said, so you want to be an advertising artist? Swear.
No way.
Yep, it did. What I didn't know was it was a community college. I didn't know what a community college was.
Right.
So, and then it said, I had a bunch of information. I said, I'm going in here, park the bus. And I went inside, and the guard was a big black man who was just, I thought I'd never forget his name. But he told me I told him, he said, "Can I help you, ma'am?" I said, "Yeah, I want to be an advertising artist." So he sent me to the 5th floor, and I talked to an instructor named Clara August, and she found out I was Native. Oh my God. She sent me to a man named Grady Wolf, who was the financial aids advisor. Before I left that building that day, I had my classes I was enrolled in. They had a testing set up for me to make sure that I was able to pass the testing to get into the 100 level college courses, or then I could have studied in their learning center and then got in them. But I managed, because I read, got in that. But I ended up in school there. And from that moment forward, I've been pissed. My whole life, I've been pissed. That should never have happened. I should never have had that happen. And so from that moment forward, I started raising hell. I started an organization on campus. I went to the newspapers. I was on the television. I was on the radio saying, it doesn't matter whether you've had education. It doesn't matter if you have money. It doesn't matter if you haven't had enough to get into college. You can go to college. And if you want to know how, you call me. And so I was a member of the tribal club at Maricopa Tech. That's where I ended up going to school.
Well,
And
your life literally turned on a dime on that sidewalk.
like crazy, like crazy.
Wow.
Interesting thing, and I always found this really interesting. I won International Miss Leather in 1987. That's another story all in itself.
We need to get to that one.
We will. But if I hadn't changed my life and moved away, if I had stayed with my educational program, gone to law school, got my law degree. I mean, I have my bachelor. I went to ASU. I've never had high school. I never finished 8th grade, but I have 2 college degrees. But that was because I could enter for reasons of maturity. I was over 18 and I could read. I think that was a part of it. But if I had stayed with the Democratic Party's program, because I was really heavy into politics for a long time after that, and the women's movement and ERA, and actually my youngest daughter is named ERA. Actually, it's Equal Rights Amendment Levi McCarthy, and she was nearly born on the conference floor in the Houston Women's Conference in 1977. But I would have been governor of Arizona. Now figure that one out. Yeah. I had a meeting with Sam Goddard, who was the chair of the Arizona Democratic Party, and Bill Schultz was a friend. He was Arizona's landlord. I had a lot of people that I now worked with who were upper echelons in the Democratic Party. And the Mining Association named me the most up and coming young person in the state of Arizona. And I have a big plaque somewhere in this house. But it was just because I was so fucking mad. I was so mad. And I'm still angry, that injustice, there's just no reason for it. No reason for the meanness. Anyhow, so that changed my life. But I used to say, it's funny that I would have, when I won IMsL, that I would have been, if I'd have stayed with the program, I would have been elected governor of Arizona, because that was the year F. Meekum won, and he had been a joke in Arizona politics for years. So
IMsL's more prestigious.
Oh, I think so. Oh, absolutely. And a hell of a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, IMsL was an accident for me. Well, not really an accident, but kind of. I didn't intend it. That was the gang in Portland. I was always bitching because we had Oregon State Leatherwoman contest, and the women who were running for it, because by the time I got there, I was asking to judge and stuff. the women who were running for it weren't leather women. And I bitched. And my friend Lamar Van Dyke and JC Collins, they were close friends back then. They said, well, why don't you run? Me? Hell no, I'm not running for the contest. It ain't happening. No, that's not where I'm at. And because we were still fighting political stuff in Portland at the time. And because they were after us, the OCA people were after us. But I did say when Kathy Gage called, excuse me, and asked us to support, asked the organization to support having an international Miss Leather contest, we were like, yeah, of course. This brings attention to the fact that there's leather women out here. We're here, we're moving. And so sure, our group voted to support right there on the phone, because we were having a meeting when she called. And Sasha's like, hang on a minute, let me find out. Hey guys, they're going to do this contest in San Francisco and want to know if we want to support it. International Miss Leather, and everybody went, yes, we got it. That was how it worked. And the Seattle group, Outer Limits, they decided that yes, they were going to support. So I know we were all saying, yeah, we're supporting it. And so we needed a feeder contest for it. And we had the two bars. Our normal home bar was 927, but also the woman who ran the primary domain, it was the classier bar. But she was a friend of ours too. I mean, we cared about her and we would go there. So she asked us if we would do this contest there, and she would give $500 to the winner to go to San Francisco to compete. We're like, cool, that's good. So because I used to build houses and stuff, pick me, I'll build a stage. So I had my crew and we went in and we built a stage. She wanted a stage that she could fold up and put away and put it down in the basement of the bar. And then when she needed it, she could put it up and we could use it. So I built this stage. It took us, about 3 weeks to get all of the balancing and everything just right so you could do it. And then I came home one afternoon and there was a big meeting of all these leather dykes at our dining room table. And I say, hey dudes, what's going on? You know, what's happening? And so she said, I need to talk to you for a minute. And I said, okay, what's up? She said, we're gonna have the contest and we're gonna support this. And we wanna make sure that there are leather women in this contest. Okay, yeah, well, you're gonna run. What? No, I'm not. Oh, no, you got the wrong person. I don't want to do that. No, I'm not running. And she said, put up or shut up. And when they tell you that in Brooklynese, you go, okay.
Touche.
So I said,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
And so I wasn't allowed to be in the house when they were having the meetings for the contest. I couldn't do it. I made the sash. And I built the stage.
Am I understanding correctly that you built the stage and made the sash for the title that you then ran for?
Oregon, for Portland Leather Woman, yeah. And I fell up that stage and down that stage more than any other contestant. But you know, there were 14 of us, and every single one of us was a leather woman. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Every one of us. So there were no, we used to call the S&M, of course, standing models. They weren't leather, they weren't kink, they were, yeah, they didn't even ride a good bike, you know, they didn't ride a bike. So that was it. Yep. That's how it happened. And I remember the night. And at the time, the person's name was Sally Huber. Sally was my buddy. She lived in the house with us. She lived upstairs at our house. Sally was a leather crafts person and an amazing one. Now I had done leather crafting, but not to the degree Sally did. And so Sally helped me. And we made everything I wore in that contest, we made, except the French jacket. That was a friend gave it to me, but we made all of my leathers for that contest. And so when we were getting ready to go down to San Francisco to compete, we're getting it. Oh, and I won that contest by 1 point. My runner-up was Jay Larson, and she was on my ball team. So Sasha and I talked about it and decided 1 point, that's not a win. We're going to split the prize monies, and we'll drive her and her partner down. Kim, I think was her partner's name, and we'll drive them with us. They can go with us, and we'll go down. And we stayed with Audrey, but so we took them with us so she could compete too. So if you ever watch that video, the 1987 video, anyhow, when she announces two people from Portland, are we crazy or what? I can still say that exactly. That's what she says. But yes, and we were right next to each other just about. But yeah, so we both competed.
So you won a leather contest by a point.
1 point.
I myself have lost a leather contest by 1 point. So we're two sides of a coin here.
Well, Jay lost it by 1 point.
Yeah.
So she went with us to compete too. Now, I really didn't think they were going to pick me. I really honestly did not believe that. I had picked my winners and I knew who they were going to be. It was either going to be, there were three that I knew were going to come in.
Do first names only, please.
Shadow, Rainbow, and Kim. Those were my three. And I knew
that's who you thought was the podium.
Yep. And so I was number 7. There were 14 of us running for IMsL. And I was number 7, so I was dead middle. And Shadow was behind me and had lots of spikes, and I had my feathers. And I kept catching my feathers and her spikes. And I was barefoot, so Shadow would get cardboard so I could stand on it because it was so cold. Because we were at the DV8 club. Our dressing room was the refrigerator room at that club. That was where we dressed. And I just forgot his name. He's so beautiful. It's just our mom, our backstage mom. It was an IML, gorgeous, gorgeous young man, just killer. And he kept trying to keep me and Rainbow and Shadow away from the curtain because we kept peeking it. And we all three turn around and stomp our feet and say no.
Now, was this the first IMsL?
Yeah.
So you're the first IMsL.
Yeah.
That's a little detail that you should probably mention. That's important.
Well, yeah. Well, it was something. I used to say the beauty of it is, the good news is I got to carry the title and there was nobody ahead of me that I had to try to match or be as good as, you know. But the bad news is there's nobody ahead of me. I have no idea what's going on.
And you had to set all the precedents, right?
Yes. And so Sasha and I talked. Sasha loved being IMsL. She was really sick at that time. Her cancer was not, when I ran, it was in remission and we thought, oh, yay, you know, we're going to be okay. And it wasn't even 2 months till it came back meaner than ever. She had ovarian cancer. Ooh. And she used to say, if I could live 6 years, she'll have a cure. But, well, not quite. It didn't work out quite that way, Sash. But well,
ma'am, I have a question now. You were on stage and you've decided that you were 7th.
Yeah. So
how did that play out? I need to hear the rest of that story.
Oh, well, I was looking around trying to figure out who was won because it was all done. We'd done our speeches, we'd done everything. And there was a real camaraderie with all of us. There were women there who, one of them was a mistress for the Hells Angels, and she actually came out that weekend to me and Shadow. It was, and Christina from Phoenix, she was afraid because of all the Dykes that were going to be there, and found out that she loved us. And she was one of us, and she went back to Phoenix and started all kinds of hell in a big organization back there. And so, yeah, it like it, but we had a camaraderie that really surprised me. There were a couple that were the professional, one of them was a professional dominant. And I don't think it was her, I think it was her fellow that was most upset. I think, but she was very reserved and stayed away from us. And I know he threw a big fit and took her away and everything before, as soon as everything was done. But I know when they were announcing, PJ from Minneapolis was next to me on one side, Shadow's next to me on the other side. And I was like in the middle. And the DV8 Club, for anybody who's ever been there, is this long, very narrow runway. And you could barely fit two people together on it. So I stepped back a little bit. If I'd have gone further, I'd have been over. But trying to figure out who won, I'm trying to, and then they called the first runner-up, and the second runner-up was Rainbow. And okay, then who's the first runner-up? So I'm trying to figure out who's the first one. They called Shadow, and I went, oh no. Then who won? Who won? It's driving me crazy because I can't figure out who won the damn thing then. Nobody else was as good as them. Who won? And so I didn't hear when they announced my name. I didn't hear them. I was too busy trying to figure it out. So everybody started cheering and yelling, and there was all kinds of stuff going on. And I leaned over to PJ and I said, who did they say? She said, you, get out there. Me. I was floored. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah, talk about goofus. That was me. I've always kind of been that one. I was so
That's
stunned.
great. What a story.
I was stunned.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's a trip.
Yeah.
It's a trip. So tell me more about raising hell and being pissed off. Tell me about your activism.
Well, I first ran for, I started a women's organization on campus. It started to be a women's organization.
Okay.
And I went on television to talk about that. And I talked about being on welfare. And that way other women could see that it could happen for them. And community colleges are still pretty accessible if you really want to get an education. It was a little easier because there are people who are willing to donate money to you. Also, my college didn't have sports. So all of the money that would normally go into sports went to help students get into school. So it had a benefit. But so I really started this organization. I had a bunch of other women who were older women coming back to school. Some of the guys, they joined us. We started it. And there were big spreads in the newspapers, the Phoenix Gazette, Arizona Republic. They would do spreads about what we were doing. And
which was making women aware of the opportunities that were out there that they just needed to.
Then I had a casework at the welfare department. Oh, in order to go to school, once I got enrolled and everything was done, I remember getting home and telling David, my husband at the time, the only one I ever had and never would again. I went in and I said, I'm going to school. Oh my God, I'm going to school. I'm going to be able to go to school. Look, I have my paperwork. I'm enrolled. They paid for everything. And he said, you are not going anywhere. He wasn't going to allow it. And he said, you'll cause us to lose our welfare. You'll cause us to lose everything. You're not going to go to school. And I lost it. That's when the piss really, I think.
And justifiably so.
I was so angry. I remember shaking and walking right up to him, very close, and saying, listen, you see this? I'm going to school. I'm going to school, or I'm walking out this door and you will never see me again. And so then he started screaming and yelling, but he didn't hit me. and throwing things and stormed out the back door. And I was like, fine, I'm still going to school. So I do what I had to do, take care of my kids, do that stuff. And he came back in a little later and he said, okay, listen, you, here's the deal. It's going to be this way or you won't go. He said, you can go to your school. I'll stay home. I'll take care of these kids. He said, but you're going to get straight A's. You get 1B. You quit. I said, deal. I had a 4.0 when I got my bachelor's. And I worked my ass off to get it, but I got it. So it made a difference there. But then when I I started raising hell because our school was like the stepchild school, but we had the greatest number of students. They had Phoenix Union High School, which was this beautiful, gorgeous school, not 3 blocks from our former department store. And it had like massive space, Voc Tech programs, and they had like 300 students left in a college, in a high school design for like 12,000 students, because it used to be the biggest school in the area. So I started going after the city council, and then I started checking all the books and records and seeing how much they were spending keeping Phoenix Union High School going. I had a couple of other students that were working with me that were in the economics department. And so we were doing a lot of investigation and then taking it to the papers and trying to get the college district and the school districts to join together and change. Let Maricopa Tech have that huge high school. And you know what the excuse they always gave me was, no, because we don't want sports in our school. Because it had a big sports arena and fields and stuff. So they'd rather spend thousands of dollars keeping a few or tens of thousands to keep a few students in a high school that was going away, as opposed to a community college that was overloaded with students and paying its own way and could have done better if they could more space. So anyhow, that was my first big, okay, I'm pissed. I even managed to get, we had I had the first demonstrations that college ever had. We had them on the school campus, and then we had them at one of the big parks, and I ordered one of the chicken places. I ordered fried chicken and biscuits and pies for everybody. Everybody showed up. It was all kinds of stuff, just seeing what would work. And so I did that. And I remember when I graduated, I was valedictorian for my year. And I was transferring out to ASU. I'd already set up my classes out there. And after I gave my speech as valedictorian, and I came off the stage, the head of our city council, the Phoenix City Council, came up to me and he said, I'm so glad you're graduating. I'm so glad you're not going to be after us anymore. I said, don't bet on it. But he was right. I ended up going out to ASU, and then I became the head of the Women's Affairs Board out there. And then I was studying criminal justice. That was my major, but I also took business administration and a bunch of other things, so I could know what the hell I was doing a little better.
Well-rounded.
Yeah. But then the year of the woman was passed, and Jimmy Carter was president, and Congress passed the bill so that we would have the International Women's Year, and they were funding a huge conference in Houston, Texas. And it was supposed to be open to any woman anywhere, no matter how much money or little money they had. It was supposed to be equal opportunity for you to be a delegate to that. And I decided to run. And at the time, I was also doing other stuff, especially with I was working with the Tewa Autumn, and they were just opening their new center, and I was also doing artwork and showing at the Herd Museum now and then, along with my mom and grandma. And Tallwing is a joke name, by the way. That's not a native name, just to let you know. Most people know it already, but it was a joke name. That's not my real name, and my real name I don't just say out, but my native name that when my grandma gave me. But Tallwing was a joke between my mom and my grandma and me, because my real name meant that I was a little bird, and I said, "Why did you call me that?" She said, "I know, I should have called you a tall bird or big bird or long wing or something." And I know, tall wing. And I said, "Yeah, that's it." And my mom was 4'11". I said, "Mom could be short wing." I'm told Mom could. And grandma's name was Browning. So, well, you could be brown wing, grandma. And we were all showing at the same time at the herd. So that's what we started signing our names. Tall wing, short wing, and brown wing. And so it was a joke. We used to laugh because people wouldn't know who they were. I mean, they knew us before who we, our other names, but this name they wouldn't know. And so
I get the impression you've never done just one thing at a time. You kind
um,
of sound like you've always got stuff going on.
it's because things happen. I don't plan it. I really don't. Well, some of my stuff I planned, but something's going on in the world right now, you guys. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting lots of calls to come and do stuff. And I'm glad, but my health isn't so good anymore. And I'm, honest about that. So, I mean, I'm in a coloring book of all places. I love that. I can't think of any place better to be than as a coloring book. There's a Native women's coloring book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's for the urban kids to recognize, the urban Native kids to recognize who their elders are in the community.
Okay.
And it's really cool. And I'm being asked to come and talk for things, so.
That part I'm familiar with.
Well, no, but this, the leather community, I know there's a lot of stuff that they say goes on, and I know it. I mean, come on, we're drama queens. We are. It's not. It's half of what we do. Create scenes. And if you don't have one that's created, then you create a new one so that you've got some drama in your life, kind of thing. And then you'll get to a point when the drama is just, okay, that's bullshit. I'm done. No more drama. Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
But yeah. But this is my family.
Mm-hmm.
The leather community has been my family for a long time. When I had my motorcycle accident and I got my leg torn off, and I was riding a friend's motorcycle. I didn't know that it wasn't insured. I had no idea, but it wasn't. So I was living in San Francisco. So I was running Mr. S Leathers then. That was when Doug Deal bought it from Alan, and I ran the company for him. That's where I first learned to use a computer, and now I've forgotten most of it. But I had that accident and I lost my leg. And they had it like pretty much taped up to hold it together. It was like the doctor said, if you take a chicken thigh and a chicken leg and it's still got the skin on it and you just pull it away, but the skin's still in one piece, that's what I did to my left leg when I went down. And the bike went on over a cliff. Thankfully, my partner at the time, Corky, managed to catch me before I went on over the cliff with the bike.
Wow.
But they were going to amputate my leg because I didn't have insurance, and it was going to take a specialist to do anything with the leg. So it was pretty much just write it off. And I called Audrey. Like I said, I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I called Audrey and I said, "Okay, Audrey, you're going to have to come see me at the hospital because they're planning on going in on Monday. This was like a Friday. I'm going in on Monday and they're going to amputate my leg. And I said, so then I got to get me a wooden peg and I got to carve it with all kinds of fancy carvings. And I'm going to get an eye patch because I already had the septum piercing. And I'm going to go around going, "Arr, Missy," a lot. So, so she said, they're going to what? I said, they're going to take my leg. They can't fix it. So they're going to cut it off. She says, oh no, they can do something. They can do something. They can do something. So I don't know what Audrey did, but she's always been a fix-it extraordinaire. If you needed help or somebody to get something done, Audrey's the person to call. And she, oh my God, she started calling people in our community around the country. She called the guys at Hellfire. She had all the oh God, why can't I remember their name? The Bay guy, our motorcycle group in the Bay Area.
In San Francisco Bay Area?
Yes, they've been around forever.
Satyrs? No, Satyrs are LA, right?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not help.
Okay, you guys know who it is. I know you do. Somebody out there knows if they're there. Anyhow, all of them got together. You remember the Elephant Castle, the big bar and grill on the corner of 18th and Castro, across from the Walgreens? There was that huge, it was a restaurant, kind of a nightclub. They got together and had a spaghetti feed in that restaurant and raised a buttload of money. Within a week, they had raised over $32,000 to get my leg fixed. And Audrey went hunting and found the absolute best surgeon. He was the surgeon for the 49ers, and that's what he did. He fixed torn joints. He was a specialist in it. And so within, it was fast. It was fast. As soon as the money was raised, she had me in at the doctor's office. She paid him. He had the schedule and I had the surgery. And it's this community is the reason I still have my own leg. And it actually works better than the other one.
There's going to be another one of those when people want to know what the leather community is. That's the story you tell.
The other thing was living through the AIDS crisis. That's another thing. It was a beginning of a time when our women's community, the men's community were starting to come together. We were getting to know each other. It was very separatist before that. And I still ran into quite a bit of it here and there, but we always broke that down. Me and the guys would get together and that would break down. We could make that go away. But it was mostly just getting to know each other and having respect for each other. And so it changed. The AIDS crisis changed because we had so many people we cared about that we were losing. Every day, we lost somebody. Every day. Sometimes way more than one somebody that we knew that was close to us. And so we women had to step up. We were also losing some of our women, but not like we were losing our men friends. So we were doing what we could, and I think that made a huge difference. It drew us together. And that crisis did something for the leather community. As horrible as it was, it did something for us as human beings and pulled us together. Because we started really caring about each other.
Right.
You can't, unless they're a total asshole, you can't know somebody and not care about what happens to them. And I know those of us who were title holders, some of us were traveling, and There would be a state that would have medications, like San Francisco had a lot of medications that a lot of these little red states, I call them now, that's what they are, but they were that kind of mentality, didn't allow a lot of AIDS drugs that weren't allowed. I said, I'm proud I was a drug runner because I carried that shit, and I'd go on those planes dressed in my full gear. I had that sash. I said the only reason I won that title was because I was the only one tall enough to wear that damn thing and not have it drag the ground. It's still the biggest sash ever made for any of us. I'm telling you. Watch one of the leather guys say, okay, we got to beat this. But it is.
Scott, what was that you found? Ma'am, just a second. Scott, what was that? Scott found the organization you were talking about, I think. Golden Gate Guards. Is that right?
Thank you. Yes, that's them. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Because it was also the California Motorcycle Club of San Francisco.
Yeah, but it was the motorcycle club, and I know it was the Golden Gate Guards who led it. I know they were they spearheaded it, but yeah, it was a time. It was a time. I remember Chuck Renslow scared the shit out of me. He did. I mean, we ended up really good friends, and I don't know who knows this, but it was Chuck Renslow, me, and Gary Chichester were the signatures for the Leather Archives and Museum. We're the ones that were the, what do you call them? When I took law, and I know.
The signatories, I
We
did
were
this.
the
I did the same
incorporators.
thing.
We were
Yes,
the incorporators.
signed the Articles of Incorporation.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we did it at Chuck's dining room table. He called us all three over, and we did that. But
Tell me about that. Tell me about the beginning of the LAM and your involvement there.
well, you know, the LAM was really a brainchild of Gail Rubin.
Mhm.
I don't think it was the LAM per se, but Gail Rubin and Tony DeBlas were the two primary pushers of us having a national museum for our history, a national repository for our histories. And when NLA was just starting, I was just NLA and SSCA, because NLA was founded by Steve Madoff, and Steve was a good friend. And he said he ran for IML and didn't win. And he decided that when he came home, he was going to act like he did win. And Steve also had AIDS, and but busted his ass to try to found NLA. Him and Wayne Gloge and George Nelson. And I know Jan Lyon liked to say she was one of the founders, but no, she wasn't. There weren't any women right away. And then Dick Stump was the first woman I know that was, and I know they're not going to worry about me using their last names because Jan's not here anymore. And Dick was always proud of that work. So anyhow, so that was the founding of NLA and came out of Seattle. And that they founded it. The first conference was held the year of IMsL. The first conference was the same year I won IMsL. I was at the second conference. And then there was the March on Washington in '87. And I gave the keynote for the first ever international leather conference. And it was held, I think it was the Department of Agriculture. I mean, it was one of these big, I've still got a video of one of our enemies, the OCA, Oregon Citizens Alliance, who hated us in Oregon and tried to do everything they could to destroy us. I still have a video they made of us going up and down the steps at this big marble building in Washington, D.C. for that conference. And Sashi was sitting on the steps and Audrey, and they see me. There you can see some of us all coming. I've got that video and I'm giving it to the library. I promised by.
That's
But I
was
want a
waiting for.
copy of it. And I'm willing to give away a copy of Sashi's memorial video too that she made. But I want a copy of it.
I will be
I
happy
also
to
found
make
a
sure
lot
that
of
happens.
photographs. I just found a trunk with a suitcase that I didn't know it got moved from my trunk of a lot of archival, like the first paperwork from when we were founding NLA NLAI when it became an international. And that's because SSCA came out of the Dallas Conference, the famous Dallas Conference, who my friend Jim Richards and the Disciples of Desaad actually put on that conference and planned it, and all hell broke loose. And there's a lot of stuff about that conference. I wasn't there, but I was on the phone in Washington, in Oregon, listening to. I would get a call, and I'd have to sit and listen to what's going on and what am I think and what's going on. And Sasha had just had a chemo, so I couldn't travel. She couldn't travel, so that was I was there in phone, but the safe, sane, consenting, or safe, sane, consensual started, or
SSCF, safe, sane, and consensual.
SSCA. Yeah, what we started, safe, sane, consenting adults was what it was.
Okay.
SSCA. And we had some meetings, and we were always making sure our meetings, because I represented the Northwest region, and I got voted into that somewhere in Dallas, and then they called to tell me I was voted in to do that. And I said, okay, I could do that. But
you got voluntold a lot.
yeah, I did, didn't I? Well, it was because I was a sucker. That's it. It's always been. Actually, I really like to think it's because I give a shit, and they know I give a shit. So, but a lot of us do.
Give a shit, sucker. So kind of the same.
Right. I like that.
Yep.
But yeah, in LA, the founding of it, we had an executive committee. There was a major battle on whether we were going to actually merge, and that was where I first met Vi. Vi was a slave to a person, and the person was on our panel, and Vi was there, so she was there, a part of everything that was kind of going on in that upper room at the Timberline. We had our own upper room, and it was a Timberline bar in Seattle. And so there was we had the meeting of the executive committees to decide whether we were going to do, we're going to form a single organization. And since NLA was already started and they already had a membership, and the only thing we really needed to do was create new bylaws for us so that they would work better for the organization we were starting. But then we decided it would be the NLAI, the National Leather Association International, which I always thought was a little okay, but it worked. And so that's where we are. Yes, you did. Vi said she remembered sitting on the floor between me and Race and Guy for those meetings. And yeah, I remember you right there.
Oh, those were the good old days. Those were the good old days when we could sit on a floor.
Yeah. Can't get off. I can still sit on the floor. I just can't get off. There's something there. But yeah, so that was where, once we had the executive committee, we were having executive committee meetings to set up bylaws and do that. And Gail Rubin and Tony DeBlas were both, well, Tony was our sergeant at arms, and thank God, because Jim Richards and I were co-chairs, and we needed Tony. He helped. We used to meet early in the morning. I had a thing. I had my cigarettes, my coffee, and worked the crossword, New York Times crossword puzzle in the morning before I would talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. So we would meet for breakfast, and I would be sitting there having my coffee and my cigarette and filling out that puzzle, and Tony would give me answers. And I would like, stop it, don't do that, no, stop it. But he loved to do it, and then he'd laugh, because he was evil. He was my friend. But so we would have these meetings to try to plan what we wanted to do, but Tony and Gail were always talking about, I mean, they were always pushing our history, how important our paperwork was, how important to keep records it was, how important for our future, for our community to be able to know where we all came from and how we got there and who helped us get there. And Tony traveled. I mean, we traveled all the time. Me and Jim and Tony, we were always on the road. And Chuck came with us. We were in Omaha, Nebraska. There was a young man named Dustin had this fantasy Omaha. It was a fantasy thing, and he had title holders all come and do fantasies. You know, we came and we did fantasies, and people would pay to come and watch us do stupid shit. And like I did a class on safe sheep sex. You know, I mean, come on. I managed to talk everybody into. I managed to talk everybody. So I don't just get talked into shit either. I think maybe it's repayment sometimes, because we were all supposed to, all these title holders, they call us up on stage, and it was on risers, and it was this big fancy club, and we're all on stage. We're supposed to do that. And so as we're going up, I'm saying, everybody, just before they start announcing us and start clapping, everybody is to turn around and moon the audience. We all have to moon everybody right there. Yep, everybody but me. I think Jim Richards, no, he did it too. So I said, when I say now, everybody moon. And there were probably 40 of us on that damn thing. And I said, okay, everybody moon. And they all dropped their drawers. And I'm going, I know they didn't know I did that on purpose. I think some of them didn't know I didn't moon. But so I didn't get in that much trouble.
Yeah, but now it's being
But it
recorded,
was-
so
It was funny though. Oh my
yes, I
God,
can
oh my
imagine
God.
it was.
Oh my God, I never thought of that. How is it
Huh?
that when you get started talking about stuff, you forget about that part? As I did.
Kind of the premise of the show here, so
Oh
it's working out well.
my God, I'll have to figure out what I said. I'll have to watch it. Oh my God. Anyhow, oh shit.
So Gail and Tony were always
But-
on.
Yeah, and they
Wow.
talked Chuck Renslow into coming to fantasy.
Okay.
And when that year, and we had our big executive committee meeting for NLA too. And so Chuck, we kind of, Tony and me and Jim and a couple of the other people kind of pulled him into NLA. And he saw, I think he saw that it was important that we keep our history. I think he always saw that. Chuck was a pretty far-thinking man. And I think he always knew that, but I'm not sure that he would have thought that he had the support, enough support in the community for it.
Mm.
And I think NLA helped him see that there was. There was something else I wanted to, there was something else. God, it was about Chuck. I can't remember now, but anyhow, we went shopping. We all went shopping to the thrift shops. Tony and I and Jim and Chuck, we all hit the thrift shops in Omaha. And we found uniforms, you know, because we were all doing uniforms for a while. And we talked. We got to do a lot of talking. And I think that then in 1980, was it 89 or 90? 1990, I think it was 1990. Some of the San Francisco gang got this idea to do a Leather Hall of Fame. And they asked Audrey to present. They picked one woman and one man for their Leather Hall of Fame for the first. And I don't know where they planned it. I don't know anything about it other than Audrey had been asked to do the presentation of the awards. And Chuck Renslow was picked for the first male entrance in the Leather Hall of Fame. And I was picked as the first female in the Leather Hall of Fame. Now, I don't know whatever happened with it after that. But one of the things Chuck did say was if we're going to have a Leather Hall of Fame, we need for it to have a place to be. So I think that helped spur that a bit too. So I think it was a really wise move of the people who devised that.
It all worked out.
Yeah, but then I remember him calling me, and I know he and Gary were really close. I mean, Gary and RJ were, oh my God, amazing men, both of them. I miss RJ still. I have Hogs on a Harley. It's a cookie jar that he gave me a long time ago
Nice.
when he opened his shop, and it's got chocolate chip cookies in it right now. But yeah.
2 hours seems like a long time, but in this case, it is not enough. I want to hear about you running Mr. S Leather in San Francisco. Is that
About me
right?
doing what?
Did you run? You said when that was when you were running Mr. S Leather.
Yeah, I was. I when Scott at Sally a long time ago, I have to think there's two different people in my mind on this person. Because I haven't known Scott as well as I knew Sally, because that was my buddy. Also, they make amazing cookies. I love to make cookies. I like to feed my friends. That's important. But we had actually, Sally was the founder of Spartacus Leathers in Portland. She started a small leather company and was an amazing leather. She also did all of the fixings for IMsL for years. She was the behind the stage person that did all the leather repairs and the emergency stuff that went on backstage. And but she founded this little company, and then she and I worked together, and we were working this company. And then Al Bedrosian, who was a porn king, pretty much, he had all of the porno shops, the video stores, bought it and turned it into a big major concern. I mean, a major commercial concern. And Sally and I pretty much ran the shop. We made all the leathers and the stuff like that. And Alan Selby decided he was going to sell. Oh, we used to love to get him. I can't tell that story yet. But anyhow.
Yet. You said yet. What's the timeline on
Loved
that?
Alan. I loved Alan. No, this is back in the beginning in LA. Oh my God.
No, you just said you can't tell that story yet.
Not yet.
I'm just asking when is time up? When can you tell us?
When it comes up again.
Okay.
Okay. But Alan wanted to sell. He was kind of tired, and he wasn't doing well, and he wanted to sell Mr. S. Well, Doug Deal didn't want to run Mr. S, but he wanted to own it. And so he hired me from Spartacus up in Oregon to come and run Mr. S Leathers. So he paid to move me to San Francisco, and I started running the shop, the leather shop. And my job was to make sure, and I also developed a lot of designs, a lot of the restraints and things that we sold at Mr. S. Especially, I started moving into some of the colored leathers and things like that. And he also wanted me to design some things for women. So I designed some of the women's clothing that Mr. S sold back then. So that's what I did. And I ran the leather shop itself. And I also did some like wild designs, because every now and then I'd get I designed a cape, scaled cape for Doug for a Halloween party at the Eagle, and he got this mask in New Orleans, and I designed all the rest of the outfit in leather, and Mimi was our head leather elf, and so I designed little scaled outfit for her to wear as his elf. So, but that's what I did. I ran the company, and it was the motorcycle accident that took me out. You know, it was the first day of my vacation. And
Oh, geez.
I had never, I wanted to go, I'm, you know, a desert Indian. I want to go on the ocean. I decided I wanted to go deep sea fishing. I want to go fishing out on the ocean. So we went to Bodega Bay because you could rent charter boats there. Well,
Mhm.
they wouldn't charter it because I didn't know that you also have to work on a charter boat besides just fishing. There was a lot that you had to do, and I didn't know anything about that boat, so they wouldn't do that. So I decided, okay, let's go to the Russian River. We'll rent a little boat, go fishing on the river. That's well, that'll work. And we were on that Highway 1 headed from Bodega Bay down to Russian River or up to
Mm.
Russian River, and my bike hit gravel and down I went and almost over the cliff I went and
Wow.
changed my
Well,
life.
that was just an interesting. I wasn't aware of that when I didn't know that you ran Mr. S Leather, and most people know Mr. S Leathers, so that caught my attention.
Yeah.
There's going to be people who are angry with me if I don't ask you about your art.
Oh, well, it's just something I've done all my life. You know, I just do it, and now I do medicine with it. Um, I think that when we do something like that, we need to do it to make the world a better place. The thing I learned from my grandmother is everything that's living has a medicine of its own. It has its own energy. And if you put the right energies together, you can create like an atmosphere. And so I do that with my paintings. I never know what I'm going to paint. I never know what it's going to be when I start. I just start, and then it's whatever it is. But I also make sure I add certain medicines. Now, once I'm far enough into it, sometimes the painting will let me know where it needs to go after that. I'll see things. And sometimes, like I've been working on a piece for a couple of friends. They bought it, I donate it. And I have a thing, I don't sell my medicine bearers. Right now I can't carve because my hands are pretty bad.
Mm.
And I'm having surgery on my right hand on the 10th, and I'll be able to carve again. And I have a lot of bears I have to finish, but they're never for sale. My bears are for, I donate them for fundraising. I donate to our community, but I also donate to some other programs of people that I like. And I like to make sure that I put a lot of medicine in that. So my bears, and by medicine, I mean, I've been collecting gemstones for 50 years. Oh, I don't know. Can you see? If I brought something here, could you see it?
If you hold it up in front of the camera, yeah.
Okay, you won't be able to see all of it. Where did I put it? There it is. I'll show you one piece. This is not for sale. This one belongs to my family. I promised the kids not ever to sell it.
Oh, wow. Hold it up just a little bit, ma'am.
Please, can you help me? I can't.
Oh.
Jay's going to come help me.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, wow. I see what it is now, and that is heavy. Back. Oh, wow. Jeez, Louise, that's gorgeous. Wow.
See?
Vi says she remembers when you did that.
Yeah. This took me 2 years to complete. It was at
No
the museum.
doubt.
It was at the museum for a year.
Wow.
But these are all gemstones and the singers, and this is in honor of the bison.
That is so beautiful.
Then I always have to have my rainbows.
Wow.
The skull is a very old one. It's not a new one.
Pulse is right. That is stunning. Wow.
They're-
Do you have art available for sale?
Not right now. no.
Not right now. Okay.
I
I was just gonna send everybody that direction if you did.
well, I don't, I'm gonna be having another show when I can get work done. It seems like anymore, I'm gonna try to put that down without breaking it. This is one that I wasn't gonna sell, but then I said I would. This one is called The Rainbow People. And I
Wow.
don't know if you can. And that's the only ones I have here.
Wow. That is amazing.
Those are my rainbow people. What did happen here? Oh, there. Okay, there. Now I can see.
I
them.
went away so you were big and everybody could see the art. Thank you,
Okay,
Cosmopolite.
yeah, but the rainbow people, it was not for sale, and then Phoenix Two Spirit talked me into selling it to her.
All right. Well,
Jay talked me into selling it. I didn't want to because I don't have anything right now.
okay.
But I'm gonna be doing a show. They can see my art if they come to Baltimore. The American Visionary Art Museum owns a bunch of my work, and they have one of my bears. And like I said, the bears are never for sale. Those are medicine. These are medicine, and I have to make a living, so I do what my grandma did. I do sell them, but the bears are a different kind of medicine. They're never for sale. And I also have a painting that I had donated to raise money for American Brotherhood a few years ago, and I'm still working on it because sometimes what they do, this is for people I care about, this painting. I know these two men and I just love them, and so it has to be just right. And it gets to a spot and I can't make it go past that spot. So they've been very patient with me because we're talking like 5 or 6 years now that I've been working on that painting. And but those have, that's medicine that I have to have too. So, and I have bears ready for people. I know I've done a lot of donating in our community because, and I have some that there are some programs that I want to support, and I wish I could paint faster, but I can't. So I'm just going to do it when I can. But I like, we've got a young woman who started a program called We Are Better Together here. And I think it covers anybody in the community because there have been people from different areas that are in trouble and they need money and they need it quickly and right now. And I wish I could work faster because I'm donating 2 pieces that aren't done yet. And I also, for the 12 days, Hooker and the boys, when I was running Dandelion, I remember we were in a really bad spot and we couldn't, we had huge vet bills and we couldn't pay the vet bills. And our vet was trying to help us. She really was wonderful, but her practice got bought by a chain, and so it made it hard. And we got a check out of nowhere from Hooker and the boys, and it helped us pay our vet bill. I never forgot that because that saved some lives at my rescue. So those are the things I like to do with the art now. Yeah. I do have paintings sold, but oh my God, if I ever get them done.
Well, I knew I had to ask about your art. There were going to be folks that were upset with me if I didn't, and you have just absolutely filled the 2 hours. Are there any questions, Wolf? I haven't seen a hand up. Does anybody have questions? I know Vi had a few that she snuck in there.
Oh, I was going to tell on her.
Yes, we need to get on that. So I wanna get that in. Do you want me to put her on screen and then you
Oh,
can tell on her?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell, yeah, sure, I'm gonna tell on you. You know what she used? She doesn't know. Yes, you do know. You know what you used to do to me. I told you I'm kind of shy, really. I mean, I followed Sashi around for days and not told her nothing, just but I was in lust so bad. This woman right here. Now I'm working on a portrait of Vi. And when you see the portrait, I'm doing a portrait of her when I knew her in the 80s. And she's still beautiful, but then she was knock your socks off gorgeous. And I was doing leather work, and she decided she wanted me to make a bustier for her. So she came to my house. I was living in Portland, and she came to my house. And do you know what areas you have to measure and how much measuring you have to do to make a bustier really fit well so that it fits snug and it holds everything where it's supposed to fit? Well, you have a very shy Indian measuring somebody who would do things like run her hands through my hair and rub against me, because she loved to watch me turn red and just kind of fold up a little bit. I never knew you were such a stinker. Yeah.
Susie has a great question, ma'am. Susie wants to know if we can have a part 2 of this interview. I feel like you've got a whole lot more to tell us.
Okay.
And I think what we might do a part of that one, we might have to have you and Vi together, and then the two of you could just tell your twin stories. That might be a fun one too.
I'm for it. You want to do it, Vi? Okay. I'm gonna
Well,
get
I'll
you.
I'll get with you, ma'am. We'll figure out a time to do that.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have questions before I'm gonna?
But I
we're
just
going-
want you to know I love my twin. I just like to get her to be embarrassed a bit.
Well, maybe you can embarrass her some more.
I'm never gonna get her back though. I'm never gonna.
Let's go ahead and does anybody have any questions? We'll get some questions here. No? I don't have any either. I was just dying. Wolf, go ahead.
I would like to know what your platform was when you ran for IMsL.
I had a line. It wasn't a line, it's how I feel. But I've always felt that in order to have anything happen, in order to make change, you have to be really visible and upfront about who you are and what changes you want. And I remember standing on, because I was staying with Audrey, and I remember standing out on her balcony that night trying to think, what in the world do I want to say to these people in San Francisco? I don't know them. They don't know me. I don't know what I want to say. And then it was like a bolt, literally a bolt of lightning. I mean, we're fighting for our lives here, and we're fighting for the lives of our friends. The only way we're going to win is to be visible, is to be real clear about who we are and why we're fighting and what we want. And that's why, and I still feel that way. I said that an invisible minority leaves itself open as easy prey for those who would deny its freedom, its very existence. And then I forgot the rest of what I wanted to say. So then I said, and we're here tonight being very visible, and we have to continue to do that. And I meant that. But I had more to say about the visibility and what needed to be. But of course, we are also on a time frame. But that's that wasn't just a platform for IMsL. That's a way you have to live your life. I've never used a pseudonym. I've never used a scene name. I remember being scared to death when we went back to Portland after I won IMsL, and there was all this stuff, and I was in a couple of porn magazines. Thank you, Cat Sun Love, and some of the other women from San Francisco. But I was kind of panic stricken because I got a call from a local newspaper and they wanted to do an article on me. And it was the Willamette Week, which was like the newspaper as opposed to the Portland, I forgot, but the Portland regular newspaper. This was the weekly paper that everybody bought. And it wasn't the gay paper, but it was the alternative newspaper. And he said, "You're going to be front page." And I was like, "Oh my God, how am I going to do? What am I?" Because I'm in Portland, right? So I was really afraid of doing it, but I did it. And I just found those newspapers, 2 copies of them I'm sending them to you. But it's so funny because I don't know anybody who saw the stepping down. I had on a white leather tuxedo. I designed that tuxedo, but my friend Mac McKinnon of Mac's Leathers in Vancouver, Canada, made that tuxedo. He and Sheila Glenn, who I didn't know at the time, worked on that tuxedo that I know now and who is a friend of mine. But so I made that. I mean, I just lost my train of thought again.
White tuxedo, the white leather tuxedo.
Yes, white leather tuxedo with
Your stepdad.
silver leather trim. The trim is all silver leather, and I've got, unfortunately, it got left in a box in Washington in our greenhouse, and it got mold on it. And so I have a young leather person that I'm going to be giving my leather shop to as soon as I can find all of the parts to it, because I have a whole shop in my basement, and I'm giving it to that young person because they can do something with it and it's not being wasted. But they're going to be working on my tux. They have a friend who is used to working on the white leather. So I'm hoping, because that's going also to be part of the history.
That's going where?
I'm going to be donating it at the library. The Leather Archives and Museum also already has some of my things and my stash, but I'm donating this to my twin.
Shar?
I don't have a question. I have an answer to a question. Somebody was asking about the bears. So I pulled up Miss Tallwing's website, which I have shared in LinkedIn so you all can find it. And they were asking about the bears. This one is from her site.
Wow.
This is called A Blessing for the World's Children. And
You know,
these are her bears.
Yeah, I was stunned. Because this belongs to the museum, the American Visionary Art Museum. Rebecca Hoffberger, who is the director and founder of the museum, asked me to do a blessing. If I could do a bear that was a blessing for all the children of the world. And I said, "Woo, that's a big one on me." So I did my prayers on this one. It's like, what am I going to do? And this is, it's not finished. This is just working on the carving and the base colors and things. It's not completed. And she said, "Okay, now we have to insure this. All of this work has to be insured." She said, "What would this sell for?" I said, "I have no idea. I don't sell them. I've never had one sold. I don't know what they would sell for." So she called. I don't know. I think that guy lost his mind, but it also had an orange diamond, because I told you I collect, and they have each one of the stones. Gemstones have an energy of their own. They're a living thing. Gems are living things. If it's alive or ever lived, it has an energy that is built into it, and you can put them together. Well, an orange diamond is a flame. It's to create a flame. Most of the white ones are good for cleansing. but I prefer the Herkimer diamonds that have the double end, the points, so that they transform light, which is energy. So they change it. They change negative to positive. And so anyhow, I put that orange just, I think that's why the guy got kind of confused, because she had it appraised. They had to have it appraised for the museum. And she called me that afternoon and she said, well, I just had your bears appraised and I want you to know what this one appraised at. I said, yeah, what was it? I was figuring, oh, maybe, maybe 1,500, a couple of thousand, maybe, because of the gem. She said $42,000. I said, he lost his mind.
No, I don't think so. That is stunning.
But yeah, they have it at the museum, and I told her, I said, the reason the bears are made the way they are is because the energy that they create can go in the area they're in, and they can help. That's what they're supposed to do, is help the people who go around them to get that. I do with my paintings the same thing. And so that's supposed to make the difference. Well, they put it in a plastic case or plexiglass, and I said, no, you can't do that, Rebecca. That's wrong. That's wrong. You can't do that with that. You close all the medicine up in there, it's not going to do the good it's supposed to do. You have to do that. She said, we can't leave it out. We can't provide the security it needs to be able to have it, so people, and we want them to see it. And so we finally came up with a way for her to fix it. They drilled holes.
That's what I was just thinking. It's like you're taking a pet home
Yeah, like a Swiss
from the
cheese.
rescue. Yeah.
They drilled holes in the plexiglass so the energy could get away from the bear and come out. I thought, okay, well, that works. Okay, I can deal with that one. When I first had a show at that museum, it was I had been here. I went to there was a FIST meeting, and I had been invited by one of the members to go with them to the museum, that I would love it. It was an interesting place. And so I said, okay, yeah. And when I went in, I was just blown away. I'd never been in a museum like that. I was so amazed. It's just amazing. And the art that's in that museum is from hearts. It's people's spirits that create this. It's not a commercial thing, They do the art because they have to do the art. And so I just was in love with that museum. And the funny thing is, before the year was out, I was showing in that museum. I had a whole room. I had all these story paintings, because I paint stories. That's what I like to do. And I like telling stories, but I like to paint them. And so I had this huge room of paintings in there. And they asked me if I would be there to talk about the paintings. So when people came for opening night, I could talk and tell them what it was about and what it meant and all that. So I'm doing that. And some woman said, but I just want to touch it. I said, but you're supposed to touch it. You're supposed to be able to touch. That's why there's all this dimension I put into it, so you can touch. And I do prayers. One of my paintings, if there's dots in that painting, those are all prayers. And I hear about this person that needs it, they go in my painting, or this is going on. Okay, maybe these 10 dots are for prayers for that. So that's what I do while I'm working. And so I said, but you're supposed to. And Rebecca was standing in the back of the room, and she's looking at me going, no, no, no. She said, you can't tell them that at the museum. Tens of thousands of people go through this museum every month. They would wear away the painting. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that.
You guys are twins. Touch. Everybody, please touch.
I know.
All right, we need to wrap
Okay.
this up, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm gonna thank you
everybody.
so very much for being
Thank you.
a part of this. This was amazing. This will be the longest one. Yep.
Judy, tell them the story of the white bear painting
Oh, I'm sorry.
and who has it.
The white bear painting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, that's one. I could save it.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I had a dream. I knew about these bears from my grandma. She told me about them. They lived way up in the north and they were white bears and they were spirit bears and the land was theirs. The creator put them there to protect the land and it was theirs always. Well, I never been up that far, but so I knew about them. And I must have somewhere heard about them or something more recent, but I dreamed a dream. And I dreamed about these bears and I saw it clear, the picture clear in my head. And I thought, ooh, the next morning I got up and I started painting them. And usually some of those, because it's a big painting, paintings like that can take me actually sometimes years, but months at least, nothing goes quick. And so I had them started them, and this was just right before I met Rebecca and this big story show. No, this was later, because it was a later painting. And I was still working on it, and Rebecca and one of the guys, one of her men from the museum came over to talk to me about framing for some of the stuff that they had. And she saw it and she said, tell me the story about this. And I said, well, I had this dream about these bears and I knew I had to paint them. So I got up in the morning and started painting them. But I wanted to find out more about them because I only knew the old story that I was told. And I found out that they are not albino. They are black bears who are born white. They are spirit bears, and occasionally there are white ravens on that same island. They're only in one place in the whole world, and it's Princess Royal Island in British Columbia. And there were developers trying to buy the land, and the tribe up there has been saving that land and keeping it secret for generations because they knew that they couldn't trust human beings to leave it alone. And it's the only pristine rainforest left in the world. So of its type. And I mean, they're wiping out the Olympic rainforest as fast as possible, and I watched it go. But so I did these bears, and Rebecca came and she asked me, she said, I started studying them, trying to find out about them, and developers were trying to buy that island and they wanted to turn it into a resort. They wanted to buy the island and convert the area around the island into a tourist resort, native land. That doesn't matter to many. You know, we're still fighting for land right now, everywhere. But so I thought, okay, I'm going to paint this painting and I'm donating it to the group. There was an earth group along with some of the tribal people that were trying to save that land. So what they were doing was raising the money to be able to buy the land to protect it and turn it, and they were going to turn it into a trust for the tribe to control. So I paint this painting, I'm going to donate it to that. And Rebecca came and she said, I don't usually do animal paintings, but can you have this done by, and she gave me the date. I have a show opening. I would like this for that show. And I said, I don't know. I can try, but I don't know if I can have it done. And I did manage, I took it to the museum. When I took it in that day, it was still wet. So you guys got to be careful because the painting's still wet. And they hung it. And I decided that the money then, not even a week or so after that, literally that fast after it was hung in the museum and the show opened, the whole story of that god-awful oil pipeline came out. And the plan it was the same oil company as the problem with the Valdez, the destruction in Alaska with the oil tankers. And they wanted to run the dirtiest oil in the world across Canada in a pipeline and end in the White Spirit Bear territory, end in those inlets there. The thing was, the tankers they were proposing to run into those inlets were twice the size of the Exxon Valdez, and the inlets were much smaller. So it wasn't even a question of if there was going to be a spill, it was when, and they would have destroyed. So it took, so my intent was to donate to the tribe and let you guys use it to do whatever you got to do. And it ended up a couple that wanted to support bought the Spirit Bearers, and that went to support. But there, it's now in a summer camp for wealthy people like engineers and fancy, rich people. It's in their summer camp. But what the summer camp is for is to teach them and their children to live on the earth or live with the earth. So the bears are now being used as a teaching tool for them. And so it's in a good place.
That is amazing. Ma'am, I'm gonna cut off the
Okay,
recording.
that's
I'm gonna
it.
thank
Good
you
night,
so much.
guys. I'm so sorry.
No, don't run away. We're just gonna stop the recording and finish off here, and we can chat amongst ourselves. But I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I knew you had so much to tell everybody, and it turns out there's more than we could fit in the 2 hours. So we'll plan a second. Everybody, there's more of these on the ACES YouTube channel where this one will be. And there's a ton of videos on the Carter Johnson Library and Collection YouTube. Please go check them out. Like, comment, subscribe. It feeds the algorithm. And we're going to go ahead and cut it off there.